Good morning, and welcome to ISD's Leader Series. I'm Ambassador Bodine, and I am the director of the Institute for the Study of Diplomacy. A core mission of the Institute is to connect students and others with foreign policy professionals to encourage a better understanding of the rewards and the challenges of diplomatic careers and careers in foreign affairs, and to promote excellence within U.S. foreign policy. This series is a core part of our core mission. In this series, we engage with a wide range of foreign policy professionals who have served with distinction over many decades. They exemplify the highest standards of professionalism, commitment, and manifest the rich cultural legacy of the United States. They have served around the world, advanced U.S. interests and American values and principles, what America stands for, and often in the most difficult circumstances. This series is brought to you, in partnership with the Una Chapman Cox Foundation, which supports our series as part of their larger project on American diplomacy and the Foreign Service. Our interviews are available in their entirety on America's Diplomat website, and we will have that for you, and we continue to build them in our library. Today, I am honored to welcome a distinguished development leader and public service, Maria Longi. Ms. Longi has served for over 30 years in positions of increasing responsibility in both USAID and the Department of State. Most recently, as a member of the Senior Executive Service, she served as coordinator for U.S. assistance in Europe, Eurasia, and Central Asia, overseeing a portfolio of more than $4 billion in foreign assistance, including our civilian assistance to Ukraine. Prior to that role, she served as USAID's Asia Bureau's Africa and Pakistan Portfolio Director and Acting Assistant Administrator for the Bureau of the Middle East, directing USAID's mission and development programs across 10 countries in the Middle East and North Africa. Her leadership also includes serving as Chief Operating Officer for USAID's COVID-19 Task Force, a 3-year assignment as Associate Dean for Outreach and Research at the Department of Defense, National War College, and the Director of Management and Policy Resources at the Department of State's Bureau of International Organization Affairs. She has served in what we refer to as the 3 Ds: defense, diplomacy, and development. She holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, which we will talk about later, from Northwestern University, and a Juris Doctor from Northern Kentucky University, where she graduated magna cum laude, and has a master's degree in national security strategy from the National War College. She is a native of Cincinnati, Ohio, and resides in Washington, D.C. She has a career defined by strategic leadership, operational excellence, and an unwavering commitment to advancing U.S. development and foreign policy objectives. I am so honored and pleased to have you with us today. Thank you for coming.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
We begin by looking back at the start of your career in public service. What first drew you to development and foreign affairs? How did that interest evolve into your professional path? And in other words, what is your origin story?
Well, thank you for having me, Ambassador Bodine. And that is you went through my resume, but it is, as you can tell, I did not study in school for the profession that I ended up in. And I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I did not know anybody that worked in foreign affairs. I wasn't exposed to it. It wasn't a part of my day or my week. And when I was deciding on a major for college, I was good at math and science. And
Mhm.
so when I went to Northwestern, I decided to study engineering, but I did not do the research on what an engineer actually did. So when I finished school and I ended up as an engineer, it took me about 6 months to realize that that's not
Oops.
what I wanted to do every day.
Mhm.
And so I decided that I probably needed to study something else and get a different degree. I ended up going to law school, went to night school because I decided I wasn't willing to go into debt for something I wasn't sure that I was going to love. And so I went to night school, worked as an engineer during the day.
Mhm.
So I learned the basics of that field, was convinced that that's not what I wanted to
Yeah.
do. Became a lawyer, worked at a medium-sized firm in Cincinnati doing commercial real estate and environmental law,
Mhm.
because that's where my engineering
As I say,
degree
that's where the chemical engineering
fit
that's
together.
sort of over. Yeah.
Right. After about 3 years of that, there were pieces of it I really liked. The analyzing the kind of the case, the real estate deal, but I wasn't loving the business development piece of it, the back part of it,
Yeah.
and it wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I parked my car one day in the garage and I decided I wasn't ready to go do the work yet. So I went down the street to a coffee shop, and the coffee shop had a banner up that said Peace Corps presentation at the public library tonight. And I couldn't stop thinking about it all day. My father had been in the Peace Corps. He was an original Peace Corps volunteer in Sierra Leone
Mhm.
in the early 60s. And he talked about it, but I never really thought that that's what I was going to do. But something was keeping my attention all day. So I went to the presentation, and 6 months later, I was in Poland as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Oh.
Sold my house, sold my car, and took a big leap.
Mhm.
And that's how I started my international affairs, international development
Yeah.
career.
Did not know that you were in Peace Corps. That's great.
I
That's
was.
great. That is a wonderful story. And anybody who's watching this, if you're a late adapter to foreign policy, yes, it still works. You don't have to start off your undergraduate career and do all the conventional. You can come in through any door or window that opens to you.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of went off of the feeling. I mean, I felt an excitement
Yeah.
about doing something new and different. And, it led to my next adventure in Armenia with the American Bar Association. And then that eventually led to my work at the State Department.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a great story. I love it. And I love the non-conventional route but also you kind of got the calling. It's seeing the Peace Corps poster and kind of going, oh,
Right.
oh, that's doing something different. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
quite something. Before we continue, I would like to ask the audience to start thinking about questions that you'd like to pose, and we'll be taking those in the Q&A box in a few minutes. And please do give us your name and your affiliation. Um, Moving on, you've led major assistance efforts overseeing Europe, Eurasia, Central Asia, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Middle East. Kind of the short list would be what you haven't run a major effort on. Um, Thinking back to the first time that you were entrusted with responsibility on that scale, what did you learn about yourself as a leader?
I had been in government for about a dozen years when I got the opportunity to go to move over to a leadership position at USAID as a deputy assistant administrator for the Middle East. And I had never worked at AID. I'd worked with a lot of AID colleagues over the years, but I never worked in the agency. I also didn't really know much about the Middle East. I'd taken a class at the National War College, but I was not a Middle East expert. I mean, I think I was hired because of my state experience and my experience doing development work for about a dozen years in the interagency. But I was not hired as the expert. And you'll find in the U.S. government, agencies have personalities and they're different. And there was always a tension a good tension with state and aid.
Yeah.
And so going from one agency to the other really wasn't that typical. But again, I
You've never
like
done
the
typical.
challenge.
You've
Jump
never
in.
done typical, so why
Right.
start?
So jump in. And so, but when I went in, really as a senior leader, I decided I really needed to kind of listen and learn in the beginning and kind of get the lay of the land. So I started that way and it was working. But then I sensed that people didn't want me to just be there as a student. They weren't there to teach me. I needed to do work in my leadership role. People wanted someone that made decisions and gave guidance. And so I really learned, and I think I was able to take this to subsequent jobs that in order to be a good leader, especially in a new place, you need to be both learning and leading at the same time. And doing those simultaneously is a challenge. But that was my first kind of lesson in needing to do that. And I think I got better as I went along. When I worked on the COVID task force, I had no health background at all. I had to have cram sessions on, what the importance of certain medicines were, and people gave those to me. But I learned that I had to do both of those simultaneously, at least in the beginning. So that was a good lesson in that. I think that job also taught me that it was a very high stress portfolio. When I took over that portfolio, there were wars in Yemen and fighting in Syria and Iraq and Libya. I mean, it was hot, and people were working really hard and were extremely stressed. I mean, a bombing of a hospital, people were dying, projects were getting diverted, and I really also learned that people are looking to their leadership in times and places like these to provide that decisive leadership, but also to be empathetic and see people as a person, because everybody working on these issues was a human being with emotions and was working, as a good public servant. And but they also they need a leader that can do both at the same time. And so
so leading, learning, and listening. Maybe might be a nice bumper sticker.
I'll use that.
Yeah, you can use it. I mean, I will use it too in my leadership club.
Yeah.
But being able to do all of them at the same time, and it's quite taxing on you as well. And when you're in these high stress situations, where you're learning, leading, and listening all at once, and everyone is looking to you to do all three, how do you keep your center, your balance, your ability to work through this high stress, high stakes kinds of environments?
Yeah, I mean, it's not always easy. I found that what helped me is I get energy from people, and so the remote work for me was hard during these situations because part of the way I would deal with the kind of the tension and the stress would be just talking to people, checking in on how they are. But I think personally, what I learned over time is really having interests and activities outside of work. Exercise was important to me. Staying in touch with family and friends, even if just phone calls. So I think trying to keep a balanced life, even when the work demands were huge, like the time I spent, many of us spent during these crisis situations at work and with work and reading about it and listening to the news. It's a huge amount of time, but fitting in time for non-work things is important to getting through it. It
can eat you alive.
It can eat
and
you
then
alive.
You're not effective as a leader if you're not taking care of yourself.
Well, and your staff aren't effective as working, because I think in what I've seen in many government jobs is there's never enough people to do the work that's needed. And so, people look to their leader to prioritize. You can't prioritize everything, but you need to an employee that's working 20 hours a day in a stressful job is not going to be effective in the long term. So
Yeah.
trying to keep that balance for others as well.
I think that's a very good point. Is you need to model it.
Yeah.
Because if the boss if the boss is taking some personal time to keep herself grounded, then she's going to allow me to as well.
Yeah.
Um,
I wasn't always good at it, but I tried.
I know. Sometimes it's just the fact that she's trying to do it.
Yeah.
You have, as I noted, in the introduction, you've worked across the 3Ds.
Mhm.
And you've also noted that at least between state and USAID, we're not competitors, we're not in conflict, but we do have different cultures. And certainly if you throw the military in there, that and again. How did you navigate? A lot of times they ask foreign service people, how did you navigate foreign cultures? But I want to ask you about how you navigated US government bureaucratic cultures.
Good question. Um, there are different cultures, and I think it even goes beyond those three.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I was fortunate in my first government job to work in assistance coordination, which required me to work across probably 15 different government agencies.
Mhm.
And so my job was to engage with people from other agencies, understand their assistance programs. And so I think I was fortunate to start my federal career with that. So I started building those relationships young. I also, about 10 years into my federal career, I went and I was a student at the National War College, which is joint, which was my first real huge big exposure to the Department of Defense. And so I got a deep dive into military culture as well as, foreign militaries and how kind of that apparatus worked, and to strategic thinking. And I think when I came back to the State Department after that and then worked at AID, I was really able to kind of approach crises and challenges with more of a strategic mindset, understanding the cultures. And so I think I learned it over time. And I tried to appreciate it, and I tried to help other people understand it, because many times people don't leave their original agency.
Right.
So many people at state would have a view of aid from the aid people they knew at a mission, or people at aid would be exposed to state because of the interagency meetings, but wouldn't have any broader understanding. And I think I eventually did, because I was in many of those different places. And I think, I tried to help instill that. But I think when you're in some of these interagency meetings or situations trying to identify a solution to a problem, you can't do it effectively unless you understand the other person.
Yes. Oh, great truth. Great truth. Um, you've really, stressed the importance of listening and learning. Your job, the substance of it, the cultures of it. Sometimes just that's something like, it's COVID, what's a virus,
Right.
kind of thing. You sometimes do walk into jobs with, I don't know, A, much less B, C, and D. How have you paid that back through mentorship and working with others?
I think I was lucky enough to have some good bosses. I never really had a certain person that was a
Yeah.
mentor, but I saw a lot of people a step or two above me,
Mhm.
being available to mentor themselves. And so I tried to kind of mimic that. I think being available, being approachable is one way to do that, because I don't think everybody signs up for a formal mentoring program. I
Oh,
think people, especially, I was a civil service in the civil service, and USAID, State Department, are foreign service agencies, right? There's two different ways, or there's many different ways, but two major different ways of being employed. And so I think a
yeah.
lot of times civil servants would look to senior civil servants and say, how do you get there? What do you do? Give me advice. And so I always tried to be available for panels where people were discussing this, or be available and approachable to my own staff or people around, so that they felt comfortable coming to
Yeah.
me. you have to be careful about offering up career advice to people, but
Yeah.
often you would see people struggling, and I would try to reach out and be available and offer up suggestions too. People did that to me, and I appreciated it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. Because and it is an intergenerational thing that somebody did that for us, and we then turn around and do it with somebody else.
But it takes time. I mean, there were
Oh, yeah.
periods where I would say to a colleague, like, I'm exhausted. I can't possibly go
Yeah.
put a good face on this. And, people said, you can't pull out. You need to be there for others. And so it does take time, but, in the end, it's worth the time, because like us retire, we leave,
Yeah.
and other people need to, keep it all
Yeah.
going. And that's one way you can help make
Yeah.
sure that happens.
Yeah. It's, I mean, throughout your career, you've again done all the various tools of diplomacy. Um, and we've talked, I think, and had very good conversation about, cultures and listening. What would you want those listening to this interview, many of whom are looking really at state,
Mhm.
or concerned about, where is our development apparatus going? I'd like to hear your exposition on what is the role of development and civilian assistance in advancing American interests and American values. Why did we have 3 days, and what are we missing now?
I like to look at that question looking at national security strategy.
Yeah.
And if you look at strategy, you look at the highest level, you've got what are your national, your goals, your national strategic objectives, and then what tools are you going to use to advance them? And economic assistance, development assistance, humanitarian assistance are all tools, just like diplomacy and military and the intelligence. Like, they're all just tools, right? And I think the development tool is an important tool to advance some objectives. And I don't think that has gone away. I mean, we maybe have reduced and redefined, or we're in the process of doing that, what they are and how they're used. But I think we're going to find that those tools might be what we need in order to advance, our objectives in Venezuela, or in Armenia, or in Ukraine, right? It's not just going to be military action or multilateral diplomacy or bilateral diplomacy. We might want to use a development tool, to help the small businesses in Jordan, because that's going to help, with the peace deal, or whatever it is. And I think that taking away a tool or reducing a tool, is could hurt us in the long run, because it's going to take our options off the table. So right now it looks like, I mean, aid has been closed down. Many of those assistance dollars have gone away, but some of them are still there in a different form. And I think the people that are working in the system now have the ability, or can use their smarts to figure out how those tools get used. The good thing is, it seems that Congress is still, wanting to put money out there for these issues, and I think there are still, some people at state who understand, the role of foreign assistance, as a tool to advance our interests. And so, I would always tell people, in strategy, there's a billion different ways that you could get to that objective. And the key and the hard part for people in government is to figure out what combination of tools, are going to get us there most effectively.
Right.
And so, one president might pick this tool as the major tool that we're going to get there, and another president might solve the problem a different way. And so I think the challenge for people in the system now is to figure out how to retain the tools that we can use to advance our interests.
Yeah. And I think in part of that is also, how do we retain, also recruit and advance those who are going to use the tool?
Yeah.
It would be very the late Secretary Albright taught a course here called America's Toolkit, where she
Yeah,
talked about this balance. That it's one thing to have the tool; it's another thing to have the person who knows how to use it.
it's a complicated system.
It is.
And there are people that understand it, but the system's changing. And so I think you're right. Keeping people in the system who understand it, which is mentoring, and it's
Yeah.
having senior people in the system who have been through it, that can help navigate it. So
Yeah. Because otherwise the tool's just gonna sit there and no one's gonna know,
Right.
you know, what is this? What is this
Yeah.
thing? I agree with you. I think, you know, that the it will come around that we have a major tool that if we don't use it, we lose it, and we're not going to be able to advance our interest.
mhm.
So I share your optimism, and I'm hoping that there are those watching this who are interested in development,
Yeah.
interested in assistance, interested in this whole sector who will. Yes, there is a role for you. Yes, there will be a place for you. Yes, we will need you.
Mhm.
So don't go away.
Don't go away.
Don't go away. You know, stand by, Nan said. Um, I want to get to a few questions that have come in. Um, Looking back on your background in engineering and law, you talked about this a little bit, but how did those two, even if they weren't the right fit and it took you a little while to figure out, you know, this is where I am, how did they inform how you did go about your work?
I think some people have asked me, did you waste 4 years studying engineering because you didn't do it? And
Yeah.
I would always say I truly don't think I wasted any time. I learned a lot. I learned what I was good at and not good at. But I think for both engineering and law, the logic, the problem solving ability, and the kind of the structured thinking, I think that has helped me.
Mhm.
And using that with a strategic framework.
Mhm.
Those are all kind of similar skills, I think.
Mhm.
I think another thing that I learned in both of those kind of academic settings was clarity of writing, clarity of
yes.
communicating, but especially in writing, the need to be precise and not vague are important in both of those fields. And I think that skill has helped me kind of throughout the years. And it's helped me with my writing. It's helped me kind of communicate to senior leaders. I mean, writing at the State Department, it seemed to be is very good. And it's very precise. And I think having that practice in those other fields really helped. It also helped, with a law degree. That always helps in Washington because every other person has a law degree. So having one yourself kind of helps in that conversation, and in dealing with lawyers. I dealt with a lot of lawyers
Right.
at AID and at state, and understanding the language and their thought process really helped me navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of lawyers in Washington, a lot of lapsed lawyers. But it's still there.
Yeah.
And I can see where it would add to a certain credibility
Yeah.
and legitimacy. But I think the writing is extremely important.
Well, in engineering too, like I would go out and look at
Uh-huh.
water treatment plants and see projects or road building projects, and it was always good to have a little bit of kind of technical skill and background to have conversations. So that was kind of a
I hadn't thought about that project side of USAID, and kind of look at this and start talking to the engineer in engineer speak, and oh, okay, this woman knows what she's talking about.
Just a little bit.
I got to take this a little bit more seriously now. So we've talked a lot of big picture stuff. A little bit about your day-to-day work and things that people don't normally talk about, but maybe a story on either a major challenge or an unexpected joy. People kind of think that we don't have joy in our work. And we certainly talked about the stresses of a lot of these major programs that you were involved in, or just a little victory you had that seemed to define the job? Just the kind of small story that
Hmm.
made it worthwhile.
I think a category of, so I was lucky in almost in all of my jobs in working for the government in development. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel a lot and see a lot of different programs in a lot of different countries. And I think some of the most satisfying programs were education programs and training programs, mostly with young people, like the folks that we had, the U.S. government paid for a master's degree or set up a program at a school to teach English. The most satisfying and days that I would have visiting programs would be to talk to those young people about what they got out of the experience. And usually it was just like a bundle of energy. And these young people, sometimes they were second graders, but a lot of times they were 25-year-olds who just got to see something that they had never seen and they wanted to do great things in the world. Right. And I think those were the most kind of satisfying days and projects to visit were the reaction of people who had an engagement with the US through programs where they were ready to go do bigger and better things. So I think those were the most energizing and exciting places to visit. And I did that throughout the whole time when I was, started at the State Department. I covered a couple of countries and was closer to it. But even most recently, working on Ukraine, just being able to do that work from the United States, and halfway across the world, people getting joy and professional advancement out of it was really, really satisfying.
I totally agree. I think um, watching that, having that human connection, that people connection, and particularly when they're young and you just see this enthusiasm spark and you kind of go, okay, the world's going to make it. And maybe we had a little piece of it, but the world's going to make it. So I totally.
I mean, the hard part of all of this work is attribution, right? So you did an education program. What's, how do you know you did any good 20 years from now? It's, you don't always see the lifespan of what the influence is, but
I've had that experience myself where, someone had give me a metric on the scholarships you're giving.
Yes.
I can't give you a metric. I mean, I would 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how far out do I have to go to give you, what is the metric? You don't see it when a 10-year-old goes into middle school because there's actually now a middle school. So I think that's always been one of the problems is I can't prove it empirically in the timeline you want in order for me to get this, but I know it's working.
Yeah.
It's
the timelines. I mean, I think people want results and they want results fast, and some of these things don't have an impact that fast. And so there's a lot of good people that worked at aid and at state that try to quantify and do those metrics, but they're not all short term.
They're not short term, and I think that correspondingly, it's hard at this point to really be able to quantify what is the impact of the loss of USAID, because it's going to take more than a year, except on some of the health issues.
Right.
If you stop doing schools in refugee camps, it's going to take me 10, 15, 20 years before I can tell you. And then you have to prove a negative. What didn't happen? That's harder to prove. So, just want to shift it a little bit. You have been remarkably successful, and you have had, through all your aid work and your state work and everything else, you have made these kinds of impacts around the world. And as they often say, we plant trees, the shade of which we will never be able to enjoy. How has your work define, how does your work define how you measure your success? And how has that changed over time? You know, what was your definition of success when you first came in, and
Hmm.
what do you now see as, okay, I made a difference, I am successful?
Hmm. I think when I didn't know how long I would be in the State Department when I joined
Yeah.
as a contractor in 2002. Um, but I kept seeing people that I wanted to do what they were doing. And
Hmm.
so I was motivated. I guess success then was somewhat job related. I wanted to get more responsibility, more go higher up because I liked the work,
Hmm.
right? And so I moved around a lot and I was able to do that and get different experiences. And so I think for a while there, the first decade ish
Hmm.
was it was job success was I needed to enjoy what I was
Yeah.
doing because I
Yeah.
had experiences where I didn't and
Yeah.
I changed what I was doing. I think that now that I'm retired from the federal government, was I successful?
Hmm.
I think that I would define it more now with the work I did. I think I'm proud of the work that I did
Hmm.
on all those topics, Middle East, and but I think that success to me now is the influence that I've been able to hopefully have in a positive way on the people and colleagues I worked with.
Hmm.
And so because any system doesn't work unless people continue
Yeah.
when the older people leave.
Hmm.
And I think that I feel like I've had a good impact on in the development community of bringing people along and teaching them how it works and how to do it. So it's hard leaving a job that you love
Oh, yeah.
and uh, but it can all run without us. And I
Yeah.
think in leaving it, you want it to run well. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to necessarily be the way you did it,
Mhm.
but like I feel like I've been able to share what I've learned with enough other people
Mhm.
that I feel fine being on the outside right now.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those people are gone from AID,
Mhm.
which is very unfortunate, I think, for the development and tool.
Mhm.
But I think that there are people that are left there, and I feel like I've worked with many of them,
Mhm.
and I feel that that's a success for my. That's how I would. That's a big part of how I would define the success of what I've
Yeah.
done. In addition to the work
Yeah.
that we did overseas, but
Yeah.
like I think within the kind of the system and in the bureaucracy, I think that feels good.
I love that answer. That is great. So I'm going to flip it around.
Mm.
From where you sit now. Um, if you could give your younger self, and you can decide how much younger. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna. You know, your younger self. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Mm.
You can do two.
Um, I think. Hmm, this is a this is a hard question. Um, I think one piece of advice to myself, I think in my 30s, 40s,
Mm-hmm.
um, I didn't have the balance I needed that I talked so eloquently about before.
Yeah.
Of time, of
Mm-hmm.
spending my time. I mean, I see, like, I worked a lot um, and ignored some parts of my life. But I didn't do that for too long, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that advice would be to take time to reflect and balance all along the way.
Yeah.
Uh, don't don't just do it in the end.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Don't wait. It's not for later.
it's not for later. You know, I don't think I lingered too long in any jobs that I wasn't loving.
Mm-hmm.
But I think another piece of advice would be to really kind of build your network,
Mm-hmm.
build your peer network,
Mm-hmm.
because and I think I did this, but I think that that's kind of maybe some advice that I would give is that that's just really key to surviving this whole world.
Yeah.
Is having people who are going through what you're going through, either good things, bad things, just help getting through. And in a job, I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Because especially in kind of the diplomatic world, people are moving all the time and the world is changing and there's people out there who've had the experience before. So taking those,
Yeah.
building and using that network is important.
Yeah. I think it's and also just having a network of people who understand what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and can give you advice and guidance or just a good ear. Yes. So I think you've run through a lot of the questions that we've gotten. And I think we've taken you from your younger self to your older self and back again. And pretty much around.
So I'm young now then, right?
Yeah, you're younger now. Yeah, yeah. And also I think it's been particularly fascinating this way that you really have been working at the nexus of all three of the core tools of diplomacy. Um, what would be your last piece of advice to those who are watching, thinking about going into this field, wondering if this is the time and the place? Can they do this? Can they be you? Can they be part of this day after?
I don't know if they want to be me.
Well, you know what I mean. But who but talk to the next generation.
Yeah, I think, I've tried and changed my mind about what I was doing many times. And so I think whether it's this field or other fields, you got to get some joy out of it, to keep doing it. If everything else aligns, I know there's other constraints in people's lives, so it's not always that easy. But I think that look for something that you love doing and that you want to spend more time on and follow that. And if it is development or international affairs, you know, I mean, there's limited jobs in it maybe right now, but there's other avenues to kind of do the same types of things. You can work locally, right? There's ways to work with people from other countries in our country. There's ways to develop your skills that when the opportunities arise, you can get them. So I think that following your interests and your skills, and don't be scared to make the leap, because sometimes it might not work out, but many times it does work out, and you're going to be happier in the long run by following what you love to do. And sometimes it takes a little bit to find it, but it's worth being a little adventurous and doing it.
Yeah, I think particularly right now, for those who are watching this, to be adventuresome, be creative, be innovative. And if it doesn't work out the first time, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, with those who are heading out for the first time, if this first job doesn't work, if it doesn't fit me, if I'm not particularly good at it because it doesn't fit me, it's the end of the world. And now, sort of like those little vacuum cleaners, if you run into a wall, back up and try something else. And there's going to be some failure.
Yeah.
Or some misfits, or this isn't where I should be. Don't take that as the end of the world. Just take it as
you learned something there. I mean,
you learned something.
I learned something from my engineering jobs that I've never looked back and wanted to do again, but there was something there that,
Yeah. So, any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, thank you for having me. This is it's good to be able to, you forced me to be able to reflect a little bit, which was good. And I hope that this I hope this helps some people navigate their big wide exciting futures.
Good. Well, thank you. I think this has been for me a person, a thoroughly enjoyable conversation. And I think your reflections and your wisdom, and just your story is going to be, I think, great for students and others who are thinking about going into this wonderful world global public service, to give them a lot to think about and a lot to kind of give them the courage to try and the confidence that initial failures are not the end. It's just the beginning of a new start.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, guys. We're with you. We're with you.